I'm Elaine, 32 years old, standing alone at my cousin Abigail's royal wedding. Blood relation meant nothing in a family that deemed me worthless since birth. The diamond locket around my neck, the only gift from my biological mother, felt heavy as judgmental eyes scanned me. Little did they know that everything would change in an instant. When my husband Mason walked through those cathedral doors, their mocking smiles disappeared. Before I tell you how my family went from ridiculing me to begging for my forgiveness, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt like an outsider in your own family. Growing up in Boston's affluent Beacon Hill neighborhood should have been a privilege. Instead, it was a prison of emotional torment. Our sprawling Victorian mansion, with its meticulously maintained gardens and antique furniture, felt cold and unwelcoming. The walls seemed to whisper accusations that followed me through childhood. My mother, Catherine, died giving birth to me. A complication during delivery that nobody predicted, but everyone blamed me for. "You took her from us," my father Raymond would mutter during his late-night drinking sessions when he thought I couldn't hear. The portrait of my mother hanging in our main hallway seemed to watch me with sad eyes as I passed beneath it every day. Father remarried within a year. Cynthia, my stepmother, was beautiful in that calculating way that attracts wealthy widowers. Her smile never reached her eyes, especially when she looked at me. "Stand up straight, Elaine," she would snap at family gatherings. "Though it hardly matters. You'll never have your mother's grace." Then she would turn to my cousin Abigail and coo, "Look at our perfect girl. Catherine would have adored you." Abigail was Uncle Harold's daughter. Harold was my father's older brother and the patriarch of our extended family since my grandparents passed. The brothers ran the family investment firm together, though Harold held the controlling interest. He treated me with particular disdain, as if my very existence was an insult to the family name. "She doesn't have the Patterson look," he would comment loudly at family dinners. Catherine was lovely, but the girl must take after some distant relative. Certainly not our side. The adults would laugh while I stared at my plate, willing away tears that would only bring more criticism. My childhood bedroom, though lavishly decorated, felt like an afterthought compared to the care put into every other space in the house. While Abigail received elaborate birthday parties with pony rides and professional entertainers, mine were often forgotten entirely. One year, our housekeeper Martha slipped me a cupcake with a single candle, her eyes filled with pity. "Some people aren't meant for this family," Cynthia told me when I was 9, after I asked why I wasn't in the annual family portrait. "We keep you because Raymond feels responsible. Be grateful for that." The only person who showed me genuine kindness was my half-brother Andrew. 10 years older than me, he was from my father's first marriage. He would sneak into my room with books and treats, teaching me to read before I started school. "Don't listen to them, Ellie," he whispered, using the nickname only he was allowed to use. "They're just bitter people who don't know how to love properly. Someday you'll find people who see how special you are." But Andrew left for college when I was 8, and his visits became increasingly rare. Cynthia made it clear he wasn't entirely welcome either. Without my protector, the household became even more hostile. When I was 12, Cynthia's diamond tennis bracelet went missing. The house was turned upside down looking for it, until it was discovered in my sock drawer. I hadn't taken it. I wouldn't have dared. But Abigail's smirk as my father dragged me to the study told me everything I needed to know. "Thieves aren't tolerated in this family," my father said coldly. The punishment was severe. 2 days locked in our basement storage room with only water and stale bread. When I was finally released, pale and shaking, Cynthia announced that the bracelet had reappeared in her jewelry box. "She must have put it back out of guilt," she declared. No one questioned this obvious lie. I learned to make myself invisible. I ate quickly at mealtimes and volunteered to help the kitchen staff to avoid sitting with the family. I studied relentlessly, knowing education was my only ticket out. The library became my sanctuary, books my only friends. "That girl is always hiding away reading," Uncle Harold complained once. "Antisocial. Probably plotting something." "Let her read," my father replied, not out of defense, but indifference. "At least she's quiet and out of the way." By 14, I'd mapped out my escape plan. I would excel academically, earn scholarships, and never return. I endured family events with silent dignity, counting down the days until freedom. The emotional scars ran deep, but they fueled my determination to prove my worth in a world beyond the Patterson estate. When I received a full academic scholarship to State University, 400 miles away, not a single family member congratulated me. Andrew sent a card and a small check from his new home in Chicago. My father signed the required parental forms without comment. Cynthia reminded me that my room would be converted to a home gym once I left. The day I departed for college, carrying 2 suitcases containing everything I owned, no one came to say goodbye. The housekeeper Martha hugged me at the door and pressed a small package into my hand. "It was your mother's," she whispered. "I saved it when Mrs. Cynthia was clearing out her things years ago." Inside was a delicate diamond locket containing a tiny photo of my mother holding me as a newborn. Her smile was radiant, her eyes full of love. It was the first time I'd seen proof that someone had wanted me. I clutched that locket all the way to the bus station, tears streaming down my face. Not tears of sadness, but of fierce determination. I would never again allow myself to be made to feel worthless by people who should have loved me. State University campus bustled with an energy that felt liberating after the suffocating atmosphere of my family home. My dorm room, though tiny and shared with a stranger named Diane, felt like a palace of possibilities. For the first time, I could decide my own schedule, choose my own meals, and speak without fear of criticism. Financial freedom was another matter. My scholarship covered tuition and basic housing, but nothing else. I worked 3 jobs simultaneously: morning shifts at the campus coffee shop, afternoon hours at the library, and weekend waitressing at a local diner. Sleep became a luxury, but every dollar earned felt like another brick in the wall between my past and future. The only communication from home came in the form of terse emails from my father's assistant, asking for documents or signatures required by the family accountant. Andrew called occasionally and sent care packages with snacks and gift cards. When I told him how the family had treated me after he left, he sounded genuinely shocked. "I knew it was bad, Ellie, but not that bad," he said, his voice cracking. "I should have been there more." "You had your own life to build," I assured him, though part of me had always wondered why he hadn't fought harder to protect me. I was midway through my sophomore year, deep into finals week, when I first met Mason. The university library was open 24 hours, and at 3 in the morning, we were among the few students still studying. He sat down at my table without asking, space being limited, and slid a coffee toward me. "You looked like you needed this more than me," he said with a gentle smile. "Business law is brutal, isn't it?" Mason Leonard was tall with intelligent brown eyes and a quiet confidence that never crossed into arrogance. He was a business major with a finance concentration, already interning at a prestigious firm despite being only a junior. What surprised me most was his interest in me. No one from the Patterson household had ever asked about my thoughts or feelings, yet here was this handsome stranger genuinely curious about my opinions on everything from literature to politics. Our relationship developed slowly. My trust issues formed a barrier that Mason patiently chipped away at. When he asked me about my family after several dates, I gave vague answers about growing apart. He didn't push, but I could tell he sensed there was more to the story. 6 months into our relationship, during a weekend trip to a nearby lake, I finally told him everything. We sat on a small dock, feet dangling in the water, as I recounted my childhood of emotional abuse and neglect. I expected pity or discomfort. Instead, Mason listened intently, his jaw tightening with anger at my family's treatment. "They failed you, Elaine," he said when I finished. "Not the other way around. People who treat a child that way don't deserve to be called family. Something broke open inside me that day. The shame I'd carried for years began to dissolve under Mason's unwavering acceptance. For the first time, I allowed myself to believe I was worthy of love simply for being myself. After graduation, we moved into a tiny one-bedroom apartment in the city. I found an entry-level position at a marketing firm while Mason began what he described as investment consulting. His work remained somewhat mysterious, involving frequent travel and late-night phone calls in languages I didn't recognize. When I asked questions, he would smile and say, "Just boring business stuff. Nothing as interesting as your creative projects." My career advanced steadily as I discovered a talent for digital marketing strategies. The confidence I gained professionally began to heal the wounds from my childhood. I made friends at work, genuine connections based on mutual respect rather than obligation or pity. Through it all, Mason remained my rock. After 3 years together, he proposed during a simple dinner at our favorite local restaurant. No grand gestures or public displays, just a heartfelt question and a vintage ring that had belonged to his grandmother. "I want to build something real with you," he said. "A family that actually deserves the name." Our wedding was small, held in a garden with only close friends and, from my side, Andrew. He walked me down the aisle, whispering, "Mom would be so proud of you today," which meant more than he could know. I wore my mother's locket, feeling her presence with me on this happiest of days. The years that followed were focused on building our life together. Mason's business grew, necessitating more international travel. Sometimes he would return from these trips with expensive gifts and tales of exotic locations. Other times, he seemed preoccupied and exhausted, retreating to his home office for hours. When I expressed concern, he assured me everything was fine, just the stress of expanding business operations. "Trust me," he would say, kissing my forehead. "I'm working towards something important for our future." And I did trust him completely. After 7 years of marriage, we had created a life I never thought possible growing up in the Patterson household. We had a beautiful condo in the city, fulfilling careers, and a small but loyal circle of friends. The emotional scars from my childhood still flared occasionally, but Mason's steadfast love helped me recognize these moments for what they were, echoes of a past that no longer defined me. Then the invitation arrived, elegant cream cardstock with gold embossing that would pull me back into the world I thought I'd escaped forever. The envelope sat unopened on our kitchen counter for 3 days. The return address, embossed with the Patterson family crest, was enough to trigger anxiety I thought I'd overcome years ago. Mason found me staring at it one evening, my hands trembling slightly. "You don't have to open it," he said gently. "Whatever it is, you owe them nothing." Taking a deep breath, I slid my finger under the seal. Inside was an invitation more elaborate than any I'd ever seen. Heavyweight paper, calligraphy, and an actual wax seal bearing an unfamiliar coat of arms. "Miss Elaine Patterson," I read aloud, "is cordially invited to attend the wedding of Lady Abigail Patterson to His Royal Highness Prince Sebastian Wilhelm of Thornwald." Mason whistled softly. "Your cousin is marrying into royalty? That's unexpected." I scanned the details in disbelief. The wedding would take place in 6 weeks at Thornwald Castle, with 3 days of events culminating in a royal ceremony. A handwritten note from Abigail herself was tucked inside. Family should be present for such a historic occasion. The past is behind us. My phone rang that evening. Andrew's name flashed on the screen, the first call from him in months. "Did you get the invitation?" he asked immediately. "Just opened it." "Andrew, what is this?" "I haven't spoken to any of them in over a decade. Now suddenly I'm invited to a royal wedding." His sigh carried through the line. "Things have changed, Ellie. Father had a minor heart attack last year. It made him reflective, I guess. And Abigail. Well, becoming engaged to Prince Sebastian has softened her somewhat. They've been asking about you." "Asking about me or about Mason?" I replied skeptically. Though I rarely discussed my husband's business with my brother, Andrew knew Mason had become quite successful. Both, honestly. But I think you should come. It might be good closure if nothing else. I'll be there too. After hanging up, I paced our living room, emotions swirling. The thought of facing the family that had rejected me for so many years made my stomach knot. Yet another part of me, a part one wasn't proud of, wanted them to see what I'd become despite their cruelty. I wanted to walk into that castle on Mason's arm, head held high. "What are you thinking?" Mason asked, watching me from the doorway. That I'm 32 years old and still letting them control my emotions. That I'm tempted to go just to show them I survived. That I'm angry at myself for even caring. He crossed the room and took my hands. Those are all valid feelings. But here's another perspective. Go for yourself, not for them. Face this final demon and put it to rest. I'll be right beside you. Over the next few days, the idea took root. Perhaps confronting my past directly was the final step in healing from it. Mason and I researched Thornwald, discovering it was a small but wealthy European principality known for banking discretion and luxury tourism. "There's a complication," Mason said one evening, looking up from his laptop. "I'm scheduled for meetings in Singapore that week. Critical negotiations I've been working toward for months." My heart sank. The thought of facing my family alone seemed unbearable. But he continued, "I can fly directly to Thornwald for the main ceremony. I'd miss the preliminary events, but I'd be there for the wedding itself." It wasn't ideal, but his willingness to rearrange his schedule at all touched me deeply. "Are you sure? This is important for your business." "You're more important," he said simply. "I'll make it work." The weeks before the wedding passed in a blur of preparations. Royal etiquette had to be researched, appropriate attire purchased. I spent more than I ever had on clothing, selecting an elegant emerald gown for the ceremony and several other outfits for the surrounding events. As the departure date approached, my anxiety manifested in nightmares. I dreamed of standing naked before the entire Patterson family, their laughter echoing through castle halls. I woke gasping for breath, Mason's arms encircling me protectively. "They can't hurt you anymore," he whispered into my hair. "Remember that." The night before my flight, I found myself drawn to the small jewelry box where I kept my mother's locket. I hadn't worn it in years, preferring to keep it safe rather than risk damage or loss. Running my fingers over the delicate chain, I made a decision. I would wear it to the wedding, a silent connection to the only Patterson who had truly wanted me. The hotel lobby bustled with well-dressed people speaking various languages, many clearly there for the royal wedding. I checked in under my married name, Leonard, a small act of independence from my Patterson identity. From my window, I could see Thornwald Castle perched on a nearby hillside, its medieval towers retrofitted with modern glass extensions. Flags fluttered from every spire, and even from this distance, I could see staff preparing the grounds for the upcoming celebration. The scale of the event began to sink in. This wasn't just a family wedding, it was an international affair, with diplomats and celebrities among the guests. For a moment, I felt a flicker of something unexpected, pride that my cousin had achieved such a match. The feeling faded quickly as I remembered how she had treated me, how they all had treated me. Standing in that luxurious hotel room, surrounded by the trappings of a world I had never belonged to, I made myself a promise. I would approach this weekend with dignity and grace. I would show my family not that I had become successful or important, but that I had become whole despite their attempts to break me. And most importantly, I would never again allow them to make me feel small. With that resolution firmly in mind, I prepared for the welcome dinner that evening, fastening my mother's locket around my neck like armor. The welcome dinner was held in a medieval banquet hall within the castle, stone walls adorned with ancient tapestries and modern floral arrangements. A string quartet played softly as servers circulated with champagne. I entered alone, heart pounding beneath my navy blue cocktail dress. Cynthia spotted me first. My stepmother had aged, but expensively, her face tight from procedures and her jewelry substantial. She air-kissed near my cheeks, her perfume overwhelming. "Elaine, what a surprise. You actually came." Her eyes scanned me from head to toe. "You clean up better than I expected. Marriage must agree with you." Before I could respond, she was calling over my father. Raymond Patterson had grown gaunt, his once commanding presence diminished. The heart attack Andrew mentioned had clearly taken a toll. For a moment, seeing him so reduced, I felt an unwelcome pang of sympathy. "Elaine," he nodded stiffly. "You look well." "Thank you, father. I am well." An uncomfortable silence stretched between us, years of unspoken words creating a chasm too wide to bridge with small talk. "Your husband couldn't make it?" he finally asked, a hint of disappointment in his tone that confirmed my suspicion. My value to them was now measured by my marital connection. "Mason will join us for the wedding." Business in Singapore delayed him. My father's eyebrows raised slightly at the mention of Singapore. "International business? What exactly does he do again?" Before I could answer, Uncle Harold appeared, his imposing frame now soft with age, but his eyes still sharp with judgment. He didn't bother with pleasantries. "So the prodigal niece returns. Never thought we'd see you at a family function again. Especially one of this caliber." He gestured around the room, where livered servants were now announcing the arrival of minor European nobility. I forced a smile. Abigail was kind enough to include me. Harold snorted. "Protocol more likely. Royal weddings have strict rules about family inclusion. Even distant relatives." The emphasis on distant was unmistakable. I was saved from responding by Andrew's arrival. My brother embraced me warmly, providing a momentary shield from the family's cold reception. "You came," he whispered. "I'm so proud of you, Ellie." Andrew stayed close as we were seated for dinner, but the table arrangements placed me between distant cousins who spoke over me as if I were invisible. From across the room, I caught glimpses of Abigail holding court at the main table, resplendent in designer evening wear, Prince Sebastian attentive by her side. After the meal, during mingling, she finally approached me, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. She offered one to me with a practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Cousin," she said, the words sounding foreign on her lips. "What a journey it's been. From Boston to a royal wedding. Who would have thought?" "Congratulations, Abigail. Prince Sebastian seems charming." I sipped the champagne, determined to maintain composure. "He is. And his family's connections are unparalleled." She leaned closer, voice dropping. "Speaking of connections, Andrew tells me your husband has become quite the business success. What a surprise, given your background." The implication stung, but I refused to show it. Mason built his success through intelligence and integrity. We both did. Abigail laughed lightly. "How American of you. Here, success is birthright. Speaking of which, you'll be seated with the distant relatives during the ceremony. Space at the front is limited to immediate family and close friends." Her smile tightened. "I'm sure you understand." Throughout the evening, I caught fragments of whispered conversations about me. Patterson's unwanted daughter. Married well somehow. Probably won't last. Doesn't belong here. The royal family, when introduced. By the time I returned to my hotel room, emotional exhaustion had set in. I called Mason, desperate for his steadying presence even through the phone. "They haven't changed," I told him, voice breaking. "If anything, they're worse because now they're pretending to include me while making it clear I don't belong." "You belong anywhere you choose to be," Mason replied firmly. "Remember why you're there. Closure, not approval. Their opinion of you stopped mattering the day you walked away from them." His words helped, but the next blow came the following morning. Reviewing the wedding program left in my hotel room, I discovered my seating had been changed from the family section to the very last row of the cathedral, among business associates and political connections so distant they were practically strangers. I confronted Abigail at the rehearsal luncheon, pulling her aside from her entourage. "Why invite me at all if you're going to treat me like an unwelcome obligation?" I asked quietly. Her mask slipped momentarily, annoyance flashing across her perfectly made-up face. "Because Sebastian's family insisted all blood relatives be invited. Royal protocol. Trust me, if it were up to me, you wouldn't be here at all. You're an embarrassment to the Patterson name. Always have been." The words cut deep, deeper than I wanted to admit. That night, alone in my hotel room, I cried for the first time in years. Not for the family I wished I had, but for the young girl who had spent so many years believing she deserved their rejection. When Mason called, I couldn't hide my distress. "I'm coming early," he decided after hearing what had happened. Business be damned. "I'll be there tomorrow evening." "No," I said, finding strength in his concern. "Stick to the plan. I need to face this on my own terms first. Besides, seeing their faces when you walk in at the last minute will be worth it." As I hung up, I caught my reflection in the mirror, tear-stained but resolute. The diamond locket glinted at my throat, a reminder of the mother who had wanted me, even if only for a few brief moments. Tomorrow, I would hold my head high and show them all that Elaine Patterson Leonard needed neither their approval nor their acceptance to shine. The morning of the royal wedding dawned clear and bright, sunlight streaming through my hotel window like an overly optimistic omen. I prepared methodically, armor rather than adornment, hair swept into an elegant updo, makeup flawless, emerald gown fitting perfectly. My mother's locket lay against my collarbone, a small comfort against the day ahead. The cathedral was a 13th century masterpiece, its soaring arches and stained glass windows testifying to centuries of royal patronage. Guards in ceremonial uniforms checked invitations at every entrance. Inside, florists made final adjustments to elaborate arrangements while photographers tested lighting angles. As instructed, I presented myself 2 hours before the ceremony. A wedding coordinator with a clipboard and earpiece consulted her list, frowning slightly. "Miss Patterson? You're in section E, row 23. Back right corner." Her tone made it clear this was not a prestigious placement. I corrected her gently. "It's Mrs. Leonard now." She barely glanced up. "The seating chart lists you as Patterson. Section E, row 23. The cathedral filled gradually, the murmur of excited guests growing louder. From my isolated corner, I watched the Patterson family arrive in groups, escorted to prime positions near the front. My father and Cynthia nodded to acquaintances with practiced dignity. Uncle Harold worked the room like a politician, clapping shoulders and kissing cheeks. Andrew searched the crowd. Finally, the ceremony itself was breathtaking. Trumpets announced the royal procession, the medieval ritual blending seamlessly with modern touches. Prince Sebastian looked genuinely happy, watching Abigail approach in a gown that must have cost more than most people's homes. For all her faults, my cousin was radiant, her childhood dream of being the center of attention magnificently fulfilled. I watched the proceedings with a strange detachment, as if viewing a lavish film rather than participating in a family event. When Abigail and Sebastian were pronounced husband and wife, now officially the Duchess and Prince of Thornwald, the cathedral erupted in applause. I clapped politely, wondering if Mason had landed yet. The reception was held in the castle's grand ballroom, a space that could comfortably host 500 people beneath crystal chandeliers and gilded ceilings. Again, I found myself seated at the periphery, at a table shared with distant connections who spoke primarily French and showed no interest in conversation. I texted Mason, "Reception underway. Still alone in a crowd. Missing you." His reply came quickly, "Almost there. Car service from airport now. Hold tight." Dinner was served, course after exquisite course, as various dignitaries offered toasts to the royal couple. I picked at my food, watching the family table where Uncle Harold was becoming visibly intoxicated, his gestures growing larger, his laugh louder. After the dessert service, as guests began to mingle and a small orchestra took over from the string quartet, I stepped onto a balcony for fresh air. The evening was mild, stars appearing above the castle grounds. For a moment, I allowed myself to enjoy the beauty of the setting, regardless of the circumstances. The momentary peace was shattered by Uncle Harold's voice behind me. There she is. The charity case playing princess for a weekend. I turned to find him swaying slightly, crystal tumbler of amber liquid in hand. His bow tie was askew, his eyes bloodshot but focused on me with familiar disdain. "Good evening, Uncle Harold," I replied evenly. "Lovely wedding. Don't play proper with me, girl. We both know you don't belong here." He gestured broadly at the ballroom behind him. All this royalty and dignity. What would they think if they knew about the Patterson skeleton in the closet? The unwanted child. The burden. I started to move past him. "I'm not doing this with you." "Excuse me." His hand shot out, gripping my arm with surprising strength. "Running away again? That's what you're good at, isn't it? Running away from family obligations." "Let go of me." My voice remained calm, though my heart raced. "Family," he spat the word. "You think marrying some businessman makes you worthy of the Patterson name? We built a legacy over generations. What have you ever contributed except disappointment?" His voice had risen, drawing attention from nearby guests. From the corner of my eye, I saw Andrew pushing through the crowd toward us. My father and Cynthia watched from a distance, making no move to intervene. Then Harold's bloodshot eyes fixed on my mother's locket. "What is that?" he demanded, reaching for it. "Is that Catherine's? You dare wear Patterson heirlooms after abandoning the family." "It was my mother's," I said, stepping back. "Given to me. It's none of your concern." "Liar." His voice echoed across the balcony. "That locket was meant for Abigail. Everything of Catherine's was to stay in the Patterson family. You stole it, just like you stole that bracelet years ago." The accusation hit like a physical blow. I never stole anything. The bracelet was planted in my room. We both know that. By now, a small crowd had gathered. Abigail appeared at the balcony entrance, Prince Sebastian beside her, their expressions a mixture of concern and embarrassment. Harold's face darkened with rage. "You ungrateful, worthless girl. Still spinning tales to cover your inadequacies." His voice rose to a roar. "She's a waste of space. Always has been." What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Harold lunged forward, his hand grasping my mother's locket. With a violent tug, he ripped it from my neck, the delicate chain breaking. "This belongs to our family," he slurred, holding the locket up like a trophy. "Not to someone who turned her back on the Patterson name." Gasps echoed around us. I stood frozen, hand at my throat where the chain had cut into my skin. The physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional wound reopened. Once again, I was the 12-year-old girl being punished for a crime I didn't commit. Cynthia stepped forward then, not to defend me but to save face in front of the gathering crowd. "Harold, enough. You're making a scene." She turned to the onlookers with a practiced social smile. "Family disagreements. You understand. She's lucky we even let her in, considering our history." Something snapped inside me. Years of suppressed anger and hurt crystallized into a moment of perfect clarity. I straightened my spine, looked directly at my uncle still clutching my mother's locket, and spoke clearly enough for everyone to hear. "Return my property now. That locket was given to me by Martha before I left your toxic household forever. It contains the only picture I have of my mother holding me after birth. The only proof I have that someone in this family once loved me." Harold sneered, playing the victim again. "Some things never change." I stepped toward him, no longer afraid. "You're right. Some things don't change. Your cruelty, your insecurity masked as superiority, your need to belittle others to feel important." I looked around at the gathered family members. All of you unchanged in your callousness. My gaze returned to Harold. "But I've changed. I've built a life filled with genuine love and respect, something none of you would recognize. So keep the locket if your petty theft makes you feel powerful. It doesn't change who I am or what you've lost through your treatment of me. I turned to leave, dignity intact despite the public humiliation. Cynthia's voice stopped me. Always so dramatic. Slowly, I turned back to face them all. Harold, red-faced and clutching my locket. Cynthia, cold and dismissive. My father, silent and weak. Abigail, embarrassed not by their behavior, but by the public nature of it. "You'll be begging soon," I said quietly, the certainty in my voice causing Harold to flinch. "Not for forgiveness, which you don't deserve, but for the connection you threw away. I'm done trying to understand why you couldn't love me. That's your loss, not mine." As I walked away, head high despite the tears threatening, Andrew finally broke through the crowd. "Ellie, wait. This is unacceptable. Harold, give her back the locket." But Harold shoved the locket into his pocket. "Mind your own business, Andrew. You always were soft on her." I touched my brother's arm. "It's okay. Some things can't be fixed with words." As I reached the ballroom doors, my phone vibrated with a text from Mason, in the castle. "Where are you?" Through tears, I replied, "Main ballroom. Come quickly. I need you." I waited in the corridor outside the ballroom, struggling to compose myself. Guests returning from the balcony cast curious glances my way, whispers following in their wake. The humiliation burned, but underneath it was something new. The liberation of finally speaking my truth. My phone lit up with another text from Mason, at security checkpoint. "Be there in 5 minutes." Just as I was about to respond, a commotion rose from inside the ballroom. The orchestra abruptly stopped mid-song. An announcer's voice echoed through the sound system, speaking first in the local language, then in English. "Ladies and gentlemen, His Royal Highness Prince Sebastian and Her Royal Highness Princess Abigail request your attention for the arrival of an honored late guest." Curiosity drew me back to the ballroom doorway. Inside, guests had turned toward the main entrance, where royal guards in formal uniform had created an aisle through the crowd. My heart leapt at the familiar figure being escorted through, Mason, not in the simple tuxedo we had planned, but in formal evening attire complete with white gloves and what appeared to be ceremonial medals. The announcer continued, "His Grace, Duke Mason Leonard of Westmoreland, Royal Financial Advisor to the Crown of Thornwald and Personal Counsel to Prince Sebastian." The room collectively gasped. I froze in disbelief, certain I had misheard. "Duke? Royal Advisor? My Mason?" As he approached the royal couple, Mason executed a perfect formal bow. Prince Sebastian stepped forward, embracing him with genuine warmth. "My friend, we feared you wouldn't make it," the prince said, his voice carrying in the hushed room. "Nothing would have kept me away, Your Highness," Mason replied. Singapore concluded successfully. Thornwald's financial future is secure. Abigail's face registered shock as she curtsied to my husband. From my position by the door, I could see my family's reaction. Uncle Harold, still red-faced from our confrontation, had gone deathly pale. My father clutched Cynthia's arm for support. Andrew, standing slightly apart, wore an expression of dawning comprehension. Mason turned to scan the room, his eyes finding mine immediately. The love in his gaze grounded me amid the surreal scene unfolding. He whispered something to Prince Sebastian, who nodded and gestured toward me. And of course, the announcer continued, "Her Grace, Duchess Elaine Leonard of Westmoreland." Every head in the ballroom turned toward me. Whispers erupted as Mason crossed the room, extending his hand formally, but with a private smile meant only for me. "My love," he said, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Forgive my tardiness. Royal business kept me longer than expected in Singapore." I placed my hand in his, still struggling to process what was happening. "Mason, what is all this?" "Duke?" Later, he whispered, tucking my hand into the crook of his arm. "Right now, we have a statement to make. He led me across the ballroom toward the royal couple. Guests parted before us, bowing slightly as we passed. The transformation was dizzying. Moments ago I had been the family embarrassment. Now I walked as royalty through the same room. As we approached, Abigail's expression shifted rapidly between shock, confusion, and calculation. Prince Sebastian, however, stepped forward with genuine warmth. Duchess Elaine, welcome. Your husband has spoken of you often, though he kept your connection to the bride quite private until recently. Mason's grip on my arm tightened slightly. Your Highness, I must report an unfortunate incident. Her Grace's family heirloom was forcibly removed from her person by Lord Harold Patterson. A diamond locket of great sentimental value. Prince Sebastian's friendly expression hardened. Is this true? Before I could respond, Mason continued, security has footage from the balcony. I've taken the liberty of having them review it. The prince turned, gesturing to his head of security. The uniformed man stepped forward immediately. Your Highness, we have confirmed the incident. The item in question is currently in Lord Patterson's right jacket pocket. Prince Sebastian's voice cut through the silence that had fallen. Lord Patterson, approach. Uncle Harold, ashen-faced, shuffled forward. The crowd around him drew back as if his disgrace might be contagious. Is it the custom in America to assault women and steal their possessions at royal functions? The prince asked, each word precise and cutting. Harold sputtered, Your Highness, there's been a misunderstanding. The locket is a Patterson family heirloom. I was merely reclaiming. The security footage suggests otherwise, Mason interrupted. As does the witness testimony of at least 20 guests. And I believe Her Grace's neck still bears the marks of your assault. All eyes turned to the thin red line visible on my throat. Harold's bluster deflated visibly. Empty your pockets, sir, Prince Sebastian commanded. With trembling hands, Harold produced my mother's locket, the delicate chain now broken. Return it, the prince ordered. Harold extended the locket toward me, unable to meet my eyes. I accepted it silently, closing my fingers around the last connection to my mother. Mason turned to address the gathering crowd, his voice carrying with unexpected authority. For those unaware, my wife was raised in the Patterson household after her mother died in childbirth. Instead of love, she received cruelty. Instead of support, rejection. Yet she built herself into the remarkable woman who stands before you through her own strength and determination. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. My father and Cynthia had edged closer, their social instincts clearly warring with their shock. Mason continued, When I met Elaine in university, I concealed my title and position deliberately. I wanted to be loved for myself, not my status. What I found was a woman of extraordinary character who loved me when she thought I was merely a struggling businessman. I am honored to call her my Duchess and ashamed of how her blood relatives have treated her today. Prince Sebastian nodded gravely. This behavior will not be tolerated at our celebration. Lord Patterson, you will remove yourself to your quarters for the remainder of the evening. A formal apology to Duchess Elaine will be expected before your departure tomorrow. 2 security officers appeared at Harold's elbows, escorting him from the ballroom. The crowd parted silently, judgment in every gaze. As attention shifted back to the Royal Duke of Westmoreland, Royal Financial Advisor? Mason, who are you? His eyes softened. The same man you married. I just omitted certain inherited titles and responsibilities. For 7 years? I struggled to keep my voice steady. At first, it was self-protection. Too many people wanted connection to my family's resources, not to me. Then I fell in love with you and I was afraid. Afraid of what? That telling you would change us. That you might see me differently, or think I'd kept it from you out of distrust. He took both my hands in his. I was wrong to keep this from you. But everything else has been real. My love for you, our life together. Just with a few additional components I should have shared. Before I could respond, my father approached hesitantly, Cynthia trailing behind. Andrew stood slightly apart, watching the interaction with concern. "Elaine," my father began, his voice uncertain. "We had no idea about your husband's position. Why didn't you tell us?" The audacity of his question struck me speechless. Mason answered for me, his tone coldly polite. "Perhaps, Mr. Patterson, because you showed no interest in your daughter's life for over a decade. You rejected all her attempts at communication after she left your household. You didn't attend our wedding despite receiving an invitation. And today, you stood by while your brother assaulted her." My father flinched as if struck. Cynthia stepped forward, social instincts overriding all else. "There's clearly been a terrible misunderstanding. We've always valued Elaine. Family difficulties happen in the best homes. I'm sure we can move forward from this unfortunate incident." I found my voice at last. "No, Cynthia. We can't. You never valued me. You tolerated me at best, abused me at worst. The only thing that's changed is your awareness of my husband's title." Andrew moved to my side. "She's right. I was complicit too, not seeing how bad it was, not doing enough. I'm sorry, Ellie." I squeezed his hand, the only genuine familial connection I'd ever known. Prince Sebastian approached, ending the family confrontation. "Duke and Duchess Leonard, would you join us? The midnight fireworks are about to begin, and we would be honored to have you view them from the royal balcony." As Mason and I followed the royal couple, I glanced back at my family. They stood frozen in place, watching as I ascended to a world they had never imagined me belonging to. But their opinion no longer mattered. What mattered was the truth I'd finally spoken aloud, and the honest relationship I would now build with the man beside me. On the royal balcony, as fireworks illuminated the night sky, Mason carefully repaired my mother's locket with tools provided by a royal jeweler. He fastened it around my neck once more, his touch gentle against the mark Harold's violence had left. "Perfect," he whispered. "Just like you." Under the exploding lights, surrounded by genuine respect rather than conditional tolerance, I felt something long broken inside me begin to heal. The royal gardens at midnight offered a sanctuary from the reception's lingering tensions. Mason and I walked hand in hand through sculpted hedges and moonlit fountains, the distant sounds of celebration fading behind us. Here, among ancient trees and fragrant roses, we could finally speak freely. "I should have told you everything long ago," Mason said, guiding me to a stone bench overlooking a reflecting pool. "The dukedom, the royal connections, all of it." I touched the repaired locket at my throat. "Why didn't you? Did you think I would love you differently if I knew?" "No." He gazed at our reflection in the water. "I was running from my own past in many ways. My title came with expectations and obligations I wasn't ready to fulfill when we met. In America, studying business rather than diplomacy, I found freedom I'd never experienced." "And me," I added softly. "And you." His smile warmed his voice. The most authentic person I'd ever met. Someone who valued me for my thoughts and actions, not my ancestral connections. I kept extending my normal life, telling myself I'd explain everything soon. Then we were married, building our life together, and the right moment never seemed to arrive. The pieces began falling into place. The mysterious business trips, the late-night calls in foreign languages, the connections that seemed to materialize when needed. Singapore wasn't just business negotiations, was it? Mason shook his head. Thornwald's banking system needed restructuring. The royal family has been a client of the Westmoreland estate for generations. Prince Sebastian and I were schoolmates at Eton. When he became engaged to Abigail, he asked me to investigate the Patterson family finances as a precaution. A chill ran through me. "You investigated my family?" "Only their business holdings," he assured me. "When I discovered the connection to you, I recused myself from that portion. But yes, I knew about the wedding long before the invitation arrived. I encouraged you to attend partly because I thought it might bring closure, and partly because I knew it was time to merge our separate worlds." I sat with this revelation, watching moonlight dance across the water. I'm not angry about your title or position, Mason. I'm hurt that you didn't trust me with your full self, just as my family never saw my full worth. He took my hands, his expression solemn. The difference is that I always saw your worth, Elaine. I failed in transparency, not in love. But you're right to feel hurt, and I promise there will be no more secrets between us. We talked until the eastern sky began to lighten, discussing our future and what his revelation meant for our life together. There would be responsibilities to his dukedom, certain social obligations, but our home would remain primarily in America, where both our careers flourished. What happens now with my family? I asked as we finally returned to the castle. That's entirely your decision, Mason replied. You owe them nothing, but if you want reconciliation on your terms, I'll support whatever boundaries you set. When we re-entered the reception, now winding down to its final hours, the atmosphere had transformed. Guests who had witnessed my humiliation now approached with deference, offering congratulations and conversation. The royal family included us in their intimate circle, Princess Abigail watching with poorly concealed shock as her new in-laws treated us as equals. Andrew felt I should have protected you better, he said, embracing me. All those years, I convinced myself things couldn't be as bad as I feared. It was easier than confronting Father and Harold. You were young yourself, I reminded him. And you were the only one who showed me any kindness. Still, his eyes reflected genuine regret. I want to be part of your life going forward, if you'll allow it. A real brother, not just a distant connection. Before I could respond, my father appeared, looking haggard and uncertain. For the first time in my memory, the commanding businessman seemed diminished, age and regret finally catching up to him. Elaine, he began awkwardly. Your husband, the Duke, explained some things about how you were treated. I never realized. You chose not to realize, I corrected gently. You were there for all of it. He nodded slowly. Yes, I was grieving Catherine, and it was easier to look away. To let Cynthia and Harold handle things. I failed you as a father. The acknowledgement, so long. Is there any way to make amends? He asked, his voice cracking slightly. I considered his question carefully. I understand. He hesitated, then added, for what it's worth, you look so much like her. Your mother. She would have been proud of the woman you've become. The words touched a place deep inside me that still longed for parental approval. I nodded, unable to speak through sudden tears. The remainder of our stay, 1 month after returning home, the first tentative steps toward redefined family relationships began. Andrew visited regularly, building the sibling bond we should have had all along. My father called weekly, his efforts awkward, but persistent enough to suggest sincerity. Cynthia sent elaborate gifts that I donated to charity. Harold maintained a cold distance, his pride too wounded for even pretend reconciliation. Mason and I established clear boundaries. Respect was non-negotiable, past abuse would be acknowledged rather than swept aside, and any relationship moving forward would be based on current behavior, not shared blood or newfound status. Family isn't about obligation, I explained during a difficult phone call with my father. It's about consistent love and support. I'm willing to see if we can build something new, but I won't pretend the past didn't happen. The healing process wasn't linear. Some days brought progress, others painful setbacks. I started therapy, finally addressing the deep-rooted insecurities my childhood had instilled. Mason attended some sessions with me, our relationship growing stronger through honest communication. The irony, I told my therapist. And what have you learned about your own worth through all this? She asked. The question resonated deeply. That it was always there, independent of anyone's recognition. That I don't need validation from people who couldn't love me. That I can forgive without forgetting, set boundaries without hatred, and build my future without being defined by my past. Mason and I created our own family traditions, blending his European heritage with the American life we both valued. We discussed children, agreeing that any child of ours would know unconditional love and acceptance from birth. The family legacy we would pass down would be one of emotional intelligence and genuine connection, not merely wealth or titles. The most profound lesson came unexpectedly during a charity gala months after the wedding. A society photographer captured a moment between Mason and me, dancing while deep in conversation. The published photo went viral briefly, with commentary about the American commoner who captured a duke's heart. Mason was furious at the characterization, but I found myself laughing. "They have it backward," I told him. "I'm not valuable because a duke chose me. You chose me because you recognized my value when no one else did, including myself sometimes." That's the real love story. Standing here now, looking back on the journey from rejected child to confident woman, I understand that the greatest power we possess is defining ourselves rather than accepting others' definitions. My family's cruelty shaped, but didn't break me. Mason's love supported, but doesn't define me. My worth was inherent all along, waiting for me to claim it. If you've ever felt like an outsider in your own family, know that blood connection doesn't guarantee love, and its absence doesn't determine your value. True family can be found or created. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, not an erasure of accountability. And sometimes, the most healing moment isn't when others finally see your worth, but when you realize you never needed their vision to be complete. Have you ever had to establish boundaries with family members who hurt you? How did you balance forgiveness with self-protection? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe and hit the like button to help others find it. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, your worth isn't determined by those who couldn't love you properly, but by your courage to love yourself completely.